Well, we're on the doorstep to Thanksgiving week, and it's a big travel week as folks go from here to there and everywhere. We've got some rain and wind to deal with come Tuesday into Wednesday, and maybe the wind will hang around into early Thursday morning. We'll talk about that and everything else as far as the week ahead and the long range tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show on this Sunday, the 19th of November. And we're brought to you by our affiliate Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. With the holidays coming, give them a weather station, and you can control it on your mobile device. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video, and if you decide to make a purchase from the Tempest website, whatever that may be, because they have a lot of other gadgets and gizmos, use the coupon code I want a weather station. And if you do, you will get.
You'll get 10% off. And what a great thing to get for Christmas for you or maybe for someone else.
Yeah, I got one. Keeps everything on track. 32 here this morning. 64, I think, was my high this afternoon. Was a fairly nice day with the sunshine. I finally got some rain coming. We got a busy week. At least the first part of the week looks fairly busy. There's weather going to be going on. But there's always weather going on, obviously. But in terms of inclement weather, we have a weather system that's going to be impacting much of the eastern part of the United States for Tuesday and part of the east on Wednesday. So that's going to make some travel issues for those that are going to be traveling during the times when we will be dealing with precipitation. Your thoughts, Mr. Rayo?
I'm wondering why WPC did not include the New York metropolitan area and Long Island in the potential for any kind of flooding probability on Tuesday or Tuesday night. I mean, we're looking at the possibility of about an inch of rain falling during the overnight hours of Tuesday night, and yet they only have a marginal risk of flooding, and that for areas to the south of New York City. So I'm not exactly sure what the logic was for that, because I would have thought we would have been in at least marginal and maybe even a slight risk of flooding. But according to WPC, at least for this moment, we don't seem to have it doesn't seem to be problematic, and I would disagree on that. But things may change.
Well, the area that's the area that's indicated. You know what? Why don't I just put this map up, because I just pulled it up on my screen, so I'll put the map up so everybody can see what you're speaking of. And they've got the marginal risk for flash flooding in, well, not so much southern New Jersey, but when you get into Virginia and particularly into western, North, and South Carolina, down to Georgia and into Alabama, they've got that area in marginal risk. That area is the area that's been experiencing drought conditions, and in some places beyond extreme drought, even exceptional drought. I have to tell you, because I drove I-20 west from Atlanta to Birmingham, and then went north about 4 miles to take I-22 the rest of the way into northern Mississippi. Everything is burned. I mean, of course, it's fall, and you expect, you expect things to be not bright and green and growing, but there should be a little bit of greenery. I mean, there was, Joe, everything was burned, and they've got all sorts of fire ban burns up for much of the deep south with this. It is like a tinderbox here.
Well, certainly, you could use any kind of moisture you can get your hands on. But I mean, for us, we've had so much rain over the last 2 or 3 months up in this part of the country, and you would figure that you don't need all that much to set off a flooding situation, or at the very least, urban and street flooding. I mean, an inch of rain in 12 hours, that's a pretty good amount of rain. But again, we're not in, and this probably is going to change as we get close
Well,
But
I kind of thought it would. I thought it would be an inch to an inch and a half. You also, at least from the standpoint of roads, I suppose with leaves down all over the place, you got to probably have them all covering drains.
well, yeah, yeah, and I think you said an inch to an inch and a half. Again, I think we're going to get a solid inch from sunset on Tuesday to sunrise on Wednesday morning, and then after Wednesday, once Wednesday begins, sun comes up. We're not done with this. We probably will pick up another, oh, I don't know, quarter of an inch or more, and finally later in the day we'll see all of that diminish and end. And the good news is, number one, for the daylight hours of Wednesday, it looks like we're not going to be dealing with very much beyond, let's say, some early showers. And for the big day, Thanksgiving Day, it looks dry. It also may look a little on the windy side, but at least it won't be, you know. And you and I both can remember going back more years than we care to remember Thanksgivings that were not exactly lovely with wind, rain, and even, yeah, there was some snow. But this Thanksgiving be chilly or maybe even a bit cold and a bit brisk or blustery, but at least we expect a fair amount of sunshine.
So I decided to bring up this is WPC's 5 day rainfall forecast map as opposed to the 7 because the 7 has some precip that they're indicating maybe for next weekend in their long range forecast. So that takes it out of the equation. So here's what we got for this goes through Friday evening. So obviously that's just the one system that we're dealing with this week. And, they've got a solid inch and a half plus. Rhode Island, Connecticut, Long Island, the Hudson Valley south of Route 84, all of New Jersey, except the teeny tiny sliver in the northwest for some reason. They have that little less, and they have a little bit more in northeastern Pennsylvania and a small sliver. So I'm not quite sure why they've got that way. Southern PA, Maryland, Delaware, through Virginia, down into western North and western South Carolina and northern Georgia. And of course, the southern areas here where we're seeing these inch and a half plus rainfalls. I really hope it verifies because, because of the bone dry conditions. Maybe they're just thinking that it's going to take more. I don't know what the thresholds are for flash flooding right now. Hasn't rained in a while in the Northeast. I mean, it has. The last few weeks have been pretty dry, so maybe they're thinking that it's got to push up maybe over 2 inches in order to cause some flash flooding in those zones.
Well, you do have a good point there. It has been dry. We really have not had all that much in recent days or the last few weeks, but yeah, and partially because of the fact that we've had a few nights up in my neck of the woods which have been at or below freezing. Maybe the ground is starting to get a bit harder, so to speak, because as I have mentioned during September and October, there were parts of my lawn I couldn't do on the tractor because the tractor would just simply sink in or the wheels would spin because the ground was just too soft. But things are changing now as we move into the cold season.
Tom Fox wants to know because the other issue is on the back side of this. There's going to be some wind on Wednesday, and probably I was thinking that the wind will pick up later in the day, Wednesday into Wednesday night, and it might still be a tad windy Thursday morning before the winds start to ease. So he's asking the questions about the balloons for the Thanksgiving Day parade, the Macy's Day parade over New York City.
Well, at one time, whenever there was even this chance, again, I don't know what the specific criteria is for flying those balloons in terms of wind. And maybe about 30 or 40 years ago, they would have taken a good hard look at a situation teetering on right on the precipice of being a possible problem. But, as I said a few days ago, it seems to me now you'd have to have nothing short of a nor'easter or even a hurricane for them not to fly the balloons, because what they have been doing in recent years when the wind has been a problem is they've simply been pulling those balloons down closer to the ground. I don't know what the story is, whether there's some kind of promotional or money deal going on that they have to fly the balloons. But You're right, though, Joe. On Thursday, the windiest part of the day is going to be in the morning, and that's, of course, when they fly the balloons. Of course, the night before is when they inflate the balloons. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And I have a feeling that if they do fly, and I do believe they will, you're going to see them flying, rather close to the ground to avoid those strong gusty winds.
There is some snow in the forecast for the Northeast, and my guess is that to an extent, this is going to be elevation driven. The further north you go into New England, probably less so. But most amounts are in the 1 to 3 inch range. Now, there are some exceptions, and this is why I'm saying with regards to elevation driven, if we look up in New Hampshire, for example, there's a 22 print here on the digital forecast map. I am going to assume that that is Mount Washington.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah, you go up 6,300 feet, and yeah, that'll help in putting down a hefty amount of snowfall. But again, it'll probably fall off quite a bit as you head down closer to sea level.
Right, and in New York State, it might start. I thought maybe it could start off as some sleet in the Catskills, or maybe a little bit of wet snow, depending on how if you're in Chuck Cardillo land up at 3,000 feet, he probably will get some snow out of this. But stuff that's going to stay on the ground, the Adirondacks might wind up with a few inches there. The Green and White Mountains in Vermont might wind up with a few inches, and then you got some bigger amounts as you head up into the interior of Maine. I mean, fairly well north and west of I-95, where you've got some, 2, 3, 4, 5 inch amounts, and there's even an 11 print. I don't know what that is or where that is, where they got that 11 print. Maybe there's some elevation, some mountaintop there up in northern Maine, but there's
that could be Mount Katahdin, which is the highest point in Maine, and that goes up over 5,000 feet. So that may also be a situation of elevation-driven snow.
Right. And I just want to point out, because I'm just sort of already seeing the and rightfully so. Snow lovers are just, after last winter, particularly down near the coast. I mean, they've got to be so incredibly impatient with regards to trying to get a snowfall. It is November 19th. So please bear that in mind. I mean, at least down at the coast, where average highs this time of year are probably in the lower 50s, you got to have you got to have an air mass that's going to be producing temperatures that are 15 to 20 degrees below average in order to produce a snow on the coast. And quite frankly, if you go back over the last 50 years or so, you can count the number of times we've had accumulating snows on, I don't know, one hand, maybe 1.5 hands. I mean, it just doesn't happen very often. Now, that said, I will say that in terms of what I'm seeing as far as the overall pattern is concerned, if I'm thinking, Joe, if the upper air pattern is setting up the way it's been setting up, and we both agree that it's totally different from last year, I think if we continue to see this pattern gradually setting up, and of course, as each couple of days goes by, you knock off another degree on the normal temperatures. By the time we get maybe into the second week or perhaps more certainly the third week of the month of December, I got to think that we're going to see something in terms of accumulating snows.
Well, you may say that, and I don't. If you allow me to share, I'll show you the CPC, the Climate Prediction Center's 3 to 4 week outlook, and it's not something that snow lovers and winter weather lovers are going to like to see.
Well, however, as you do that, let us point out that lately they haven't been exactly hitting home runs.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so let's put that big asterisk there. They've been a bit behind the curve when it comes to certain things. Now, see, this December 2nd through the 15th. Okay, I mean, is this an El Nino map? I mean, is this a straight El Nino map? I asked the question.
Yeah, well, that's the question. Are they basing it simply on El Nino climatology, or are they basing it on, because when you look at the 6 to 10 and 8 to 14-day outlook, most of the country is under below normal conditions. And then all of a sudden they come up with this.
When was this done?
This was done on Friday.
On Friday. Okay. And what about the 8 to 14 and the 6 to 10? Were those also done on Friday?
Yeah, well, I don't have the Friday 6 to 10 and 8, but I mean, here's today 6 to 10. This takes us now through the 29th of November. As you can see, I'd have to say conservatively 85% of the country is under below normal conditions, including us here in the Northeast.
Right.
And you move forward to 8 to 14 days, and you see that still it's below normal over a large swath of the country. Now, notice when the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, this is again was done today.
Joe, I'm sorry. Can you just unshare for a moment?
Sure thing.
All right. Just give me a second here. I forgot to switch the. Now you go ahead and share now and start from the beginning.
Okay. Well, then let me back up. Let me show you first, all of you. This is the Climate Prediction Center, NOAA's Climate Prediction Center. Their 6 to 10 day outlook. This is valid from the 25th through the 29th of November. And you could see that, again, as I said, conservatively, 85% of the country has a probability of being below normal temperature-wise. Now you move to the 8 to 14-day outlook. Again, this forecast was done today, issued November 19th, and you could see, again, a large swath of the United States, contiguous United States, is under below normal conditions. And the end date on this 8 to 14-day outlook is December the 3rd. But then take a look at the 3 to 4 week outlook, which was done on Friday, which starts on valid from December 2nd and continues to the 15th. All of a sudden, you have above normal, but not just simply above normal. I mean, 1, 2, 3, this section right here, the dark area of orange, that's 60 to 70% probability of above normal. So, I mean, by simple extrapolation from 6 to 10 to 8 to 14 days, you would figure that at least some part of the United States would still have below normal. There's no below normal. Where did it go?
Look, first of all, that was done on Friday. So, whatever they saw on Friday, I'm thinking, okay, maybe they would not have put out the same map if they were doing that today, considering what they have on the 6 to 10 and on the 8 to 14. All right. So this may be just old guidance from that respect. I would not, as I disagreed with them when they had on the whatever it was a couple of weeks ago with the 6 to 10. I'll disagree again. And the other thing is, by the way, remember, okay, so they have a high probability of below normal. What they don't tell you is how far below normal, which this time of year is probably a more important number to focus on. Are we talking about -2? Are we talking about -3? Are we talking about -1? Maybe it's just a broad swath of colder than normal air, but it's anything spectacular from a standpoint of cold weather. So you got to be careful when you look at these maps. The mind almost, I guess, reflexively wants to see above normal. When they put above normal, you think it's going to be +20 and record high temperatures. No, I mean, it may be warmer than normal, but it might only be a degree or two, and averaged out over a long, the 3 to 4 week forecast, that's 14 days. A lot of different things can happen in 14 days, and you could still wind up with the above average temperature. So, this is just, you look at it and you say, okay, gives you maybe an idea of the broader pattern, but I don't know how practical it is. Doesn't really tell you much about what could happen inside that long stretch of time.
Well, according to James Davidson on the chat board, he says, hello, everybody on the chat. And it looks like wild swings in temperature again this winter since the Weather Channel. Does anybody still watch the Weather Channel?
Why quote the Weather Channel here? Who cares what they say? They've got their own channel. I don't understand that. I really don't. But go on.
The Weather Channel does call for much warmer than normal temperatures.
Who cares? Who cares? I mean, honestly, who cares? Do you care? I don't care. Or should we just say, oh well, the Weather Channel's calling for a bunch above normal temperatures. We'll stop the show and we'll see you in a month. Come on. No, nobody. James Davidson. Nobody cares what the Weather Channel says. Okay. So there. And on that note, I just want to mention that Bobby Livingsworth is our first super chat hit of the night, Joe. Thank you, Bobby, for hitting the tip jar and for not mentioning the Weather Channel on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m. And for those of you who are watching in the background, or if you're still there, uh, welcome. And do subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss us. You will definitely not miss us if you turn your notifications on. You will be notified every time Joe and I are on.
And I should point out that we made a decision before the show that we will not be doing anything on Thursday.
Correct. There will be no show this Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Day is a day for family. That's my favorite. Actually, when we get into this holiday stretch, or what I call the black hole from November 1st to December 25th, because it goes so fast, and you're constantly doing things, and yeah, it's good to take a little bit of a breather. So we're going to do that. So if we'll be on through Wednesday, and then unless the world comes to an end for Friday and Saturday, we won't be back until next Sunday at 7:35 p.m.
Right.
Good decision.
Good.
Also, there will be an altered schedule next week, which we will talk about as we get closer. Okay, so just letting everybody know. And the chairman, Scott Briller, hitting super chat tonight. Thank you for exactly. No, you're right. On this channel, Scott, nobody else matters at all. At all. All right, here's a satellite loop tonight as we look at what's going on across the U.S. and really nice in the east. That tropical system that was down in the Caribbean never developed into anything. And this goes back to how many days and days and days. I think we could even say weeks and weeks, where the GFS was spinning up a major hurricane in the Caribbean, and it did not happen. We were suspicious of that idea from the get-go, and that is exactly what didn't happen. We didn't get much of anything. I do think that what did go on there has impacted the weather to some degree in terms of the overall upper pattern across the United States. I think it's helped to slow down the arrival of any let's call it sustained cold air, and instead we're getting shots in between weather systems as they continue to move along. But this one here that's covering the middle of the country here, Joe, does look. This is probably the most potent system that we've had in several weeks.
Yes, several. Well, I'm sorry, Joe. I've been seeing the buffer wheel
Oh,
spinning
okay.
round and round or whatever. But so yeah,
Well, don't worry about that. Just you keep talking.
it's gone. It's gone. So
Okay.
anyway, thank all the people who have all of a sudden started to hit super chat. We have, of course, we have Bobby Livingsworth. We have the chairman, Tom Fox, and now we have Steve Lapointe, who says
Yes.
thanks for all your prayer. Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Steve's been not Steve. Steve, I think I thought saw you say that you had some surgery you had to do and you're recovering. We're glad to see that you're on the mend, and take your Tylenol. Good idea.
Yes.
The Storm Prediction Center. We haven't you looked at the Storm Prediction Center for a while because the folks at SPC have been relaxing. There's actually a small area of marginal risk tonight in Oklahoma, surrounded by an area of general thunderstorms. But tomorrow, interestingly enough, they've got an enhanced risk. And you don't want severe weather, but this is a bit of a trade-off because they are seeing, they need the rain so desperately in the lower Mississippi Valley and particularly in the state of Louisiana. Uh, they've got an enhanced risk of severe weather being indicated there, and that that's kind of the trade-off here with this weather system moving east, and there is actually a 10% tornado risk. Which,
Wow.
which is, for November, you don't see this too often, but we've got a 10% tornado risk across the northern half of Louisiana and into southwestern Mississippi, and a very large area of 5 that covers southern Arkansas, much of the rest of the state of Mississippi, even into southwest Alabama, and then going back into East Texas. I mean, this is at least from the standpoint of what's moving across in the southern stream and the jet. This is a bit of a powerhouse here.
The last thing you want to see is something going into the historical annals, the great major tornadic outbreak, Thanksgiving week 2023. But I'm hoping that it doesn't amount to that. I mean, rain, yeah. I hope they get more rain, so much rain that somebody considers calling NOAA, but not NOAA, NOAA, but NOAH. But no, the 10% probability or possibility of tornadic activity, that's not good. That is not seen very often. That's not seen very often during the spring or early summer. And here
Right.
we are, I point out, Joe, coming down the home stretch of November and toward December. But there it is, and it'll be interesting to watch.
Now for the next day, and this is for Tuesday. I believe it's for Tuesday into Wednesday. I'm just trying to get my mouse back here so I can bring it up. Yeah, Tuesday into Wednesday. They've got a small area of marginal risk in southern Mississippi, extreme southeast Mississippi. I'm sorry, southern Alabama, extreme southeastern Mississippi, and extreme southeastern Louisiana, and the western portion of the Florida Panhandle. But no thunderstorms north of southeast Virginia and the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula. It's always tough when you got a situation like we're having with a cold front, warm front, cold front kind of scenario, and you're waiting for the warm front to kind of push its way up. I wonder whether there might be maybe a rumble or two of thunder near where that warm front sets up, wherever that may be.
True. Enough forcing or enough lifting could lead to some rumbles or grumbles of thunder, but at least they don't have. And again, as you could see on the map, nothing north of southeast Virginia to indicate even general thunderstorm coverage. But again, the renegade storm is not out of the question, especially as you pointed out, Joe, with the warm front, cold front combination that is due to hit this part of the country, Tuesday night, early Wednesday.
Now, checking on the radar, we are seeing some action. There have been some bands of snow showers, a little bit of stuff coming in off the lakes today upstate and into New England. Joe, are you there?
Oh, I thought for a second that we had an internet hit because all of a sudden it just. I'm still here.
Okay. No, I was trying to. I'm taking a couple of things. I have a Wi-Fi booster that I think is maybe causing the problem, so I just unplugged it and see if that solves the buffering issue, which I apologize for. But you can see on the radar that we have these snow showers here, upstate New York, into Vermont, New Hampshire, and parts of Maine. There's probably a little bit of wet weather there off the Cape, but this is another one of these upper troughs that's moving through the Northeast again, and colder air is coming for tonight. Tomorrow morning should be cold, and whenever we get to showtime, so just bear with me, folks, for 1 second here. Should come back momentarily. We just did. I'm just going to, let's see, what am I going to do here? Are you there, Joe?
I'm here. I'm
Okay.
here.
All right. So just give me a second here. I'm just trying to see if I'm having just this problem with the wireless. I don't know why I would, but it seems to be happening a bit lately. But all right, let's hope everything is settled down now. Here you go. A lot of rain on the radar from North Dakota southward through Kansas, eastern Kansas, western Missouri, probably a few thunderstorms there in Arkansas, and into northwest Louisiana. I mean, relatively speaking, it's a lot of rain considering what they've experienced. We've also got some precip down across New Mexico and Arizona and Texas, back up into Colorado, and also actually some little impressive area there in and around Salt Lake City. Let us now take a look at what WPC has to say with regards to all of this. And we'll load a fresh map from WPC and give you the probabilities for at least 2 inches. And for the first time, going back to the Northeast, they have about as large an area as we've seen all month in northeastern New York and across Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Maine. That is an 80, that salmon color, I guess you want to call it. That's an 80% or higher probability for at least 2. And I'll put the probabilities for at least 4, and it's over 50% in eastern New Hampshire, northeastern New Hampshire, and on up into western Maine. Meanwhile, if we go out west, we'll take a look. You got some pockets of 4-inch plus snows. I'll go back to the 2-inch. It's not that impressive out in the west. You can see even the 2 inches. You got a few areas to the west of Denver. So if you go I-25 and just go west of there, you've got a few pockets there where the probabilities are at about 50%. But these are small areas and probably from the standpoint of being elevation driven. And on their long range, as that freshens up, here goes WPC. Let's see. So put the state boundaries. And this is for Wednesday into Thursday up in Maine. They have a 30 to 50% probability of at least a few additional inches on top of what they're forecasting with the stuff going into Wednesday morning. So this would be from Wednesday morning into Thursday on top of what we saw on the forecast map earlier. So you want to call this the first significant snowfall for northern New England? Okay, I'm okay with that.
I'm sure our friends at TWC will have a name for this. I don't think.
Anyway, thank you for using that acronym. All right, just a couple of things on the long range that I thought were sort of interesting that I saw today, and this was off the ensembles from last night, the 0Z ensembles. So the Arctic oscillation is going negative soon, right after Thanksgiving, according to this. And the Arctic oscillation is going to be negative, 1 standard deviation negative. You got half, as always, you're going to have about half of them above and half of them below. There's some of the members get pretty aggressive with the AO going to -3 and -4. While on the other side of the equation, you've got some of the members that want to go to +1 and +2. So again, if you mean it all out, you can see how the members really agree at the beginning of the forecast period, probably through the first 6 or 7 days when this thing goes negative toward the end of this week. And then after that, the mean levels off there at that -1. But this is the first time that I've seen this go as negative as it's showing. So I thought that was interesting. And at the same time, if we look at the NAO, the NAO is actually, we had a forecast one day last week where the NAO was forecast to go positive by 1 standard deviation in the long term. We'll take a look. Now we're at almost 1 now, and it's forecast to go negative late this week, and not much, but it is negative for much of the time right into the first days of December. So the ensembles apparently are seeing something worth noting. And the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, actually is positive right now, goes to the neutral line at the end of the week, but then bounces off of that and goes slightly positive. So, and the East Pacific Oscillation Index is also negative. So, your teleconnections are kind of going in the right, they all seem to be going in the right direction if you want cold weather and snow. I just think that we're right now we're just a victim of where we are in time. It's November 19th. Okay. If I would say that if we had these teleconnections a month from now, a lot of these weather systems would probably be much more in play in terms of producing winter weather across the northern tier, if you want to call the northern half of the U.S. maybe. So this is why as I said earlier, that I think if we hold on to this pattern going into December, as we get deeper, as we start getting deeper into the month of December, the normals keep coming down. You're going to have, I think you're going to have opportunities for some snow.
And I agree. I absolutely agree. As somebody on the chat board said, this is looking positive for winter weather conditions. So we'll see what happens. And again, I question what CPC had said. Climate Prediction Center had said a couple of days ago on their 3 to 4 week outlook, because they just sweep all the cold air aside and just really punch in very mild, if not downright warm conditions for
Well,
much of December. But again,
just for curiosity's sake, I'm going to do so. I'm going to look at something here. Hang on a second. So I got the North America map. So they did this off of the Zero Z Friday ensembles, okay, which go out 16 days. So I want to go back to that. So let's go to Friday. This is Friday. uh,
it was the 17th.
okay, so this is Friday. So I want the Saturday more, the zero Z, right? The zero Z Friday. That's the one I want. So I got that. Okay, so let's take a look at what those ensembles did. And of course, you see all the troughing in the east. And of course, some of the models late last week were much more aggressive with colder air coming in later this week. And, Joe, by the way, I meant to mention this. I don't know if you followed the models over the last 3 days, but it's amazing to me how much they not only changed from run to run, but the models themselves were different from each other in so many different respects. From who brought the cold air in, who didn't bring the cold air in, who generated a second wave, who didn't generate a second wave. It's been a real challenge trying to stay ahead of what's going to happen Tuesday into Wednesday. But I'm just going to roll through in the long range. Well, now I kind of get what they saw here, Joe. If you look what they saw here on this zero Z run from last Friday, look at the trough in the west and look at the ridge that pops up in the east at the end of the forecast period. Okay, so it kind of makes sense when you look at this. This is for December 3rd. All right, so this would have been so this is what they did their 3 to 4 week basis on, looking at least at day 16, where you've got a big ridge that develops south of Florida and a deep trough in the west. Now, I would have looked at this and I saw when I saw this, I said this goes completely against the grain of anything else that's been out there. So why don't we take a look now at what we have today? So I'll go to the 12Z, or should I go 0Z? Should I go 0Z because that'll be a match?
Yes, yeah.
All right, so let's look at last night's 0Z long range. And so last Friday's 384 becomes today's 348. All right? And look at the difference. All right, the other trough in the west, ridge in the east on that Friday one. What do we have on this one? Look at the flow coming from northwest Canada, trough in the east, trough down at 180, ridge in the west, and off the west coast, pushing into the northwest.
Now, Fled Weather, by the way, on the chat board, addressing me, saying, Joe Rayo, he's showing the GFS operational and not the ensembles.
Oh, I'm
But you,
sorry. You're right. All right, but still, you're right. But Fled, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go. I'll look at the ensembles, but the operationals have flipped. The operational from that zero
right,
Z run
right.
flipped. Okay, thank you for catching that. Uh, let's look at the ensembles. All right, and the ensembles again. Let's go back to zero Z Saturday. So I'm sorry, zero Z Friday. That is, here we go. So that's zero Z Friday. And if you look at the zero Z Friday gaffs. Actually, Joe, this is the run of the GFS on the ensembles that goes beyond 384 hours. This one goes out a million hours. So this one, so if we go out to 384, you can see where the blue is. It's in the west. You can see where the brown is. It's in the northeast, and it's normal in between. But this is a warmer look on those ensembles, and as we go forward, it eventually disappeared, and now we're at hour 540. Okay, this one. Let's see how far out this goes. This goes out, Joe. Here's December 15th. Okay, I know it's hysterical, but it's there. I mean, you saw that it did go to that ridge in the west trough, ridge in the east trough in the west for a short time at the
Don't get
beginning.
sour. Don't get sour. It's only the 702 hour.
Right, exactly. Actually, this goes out to 840 hours, which is December 22nd. And it's got normal, of course, it's got normal heights and all the rest of it. But I looking at what they had to work with on Friday, that's what they did. Now, if we go to so now let's go to today's. All right, so let's go to today's Sunday's 0Z and Sambles. All right. So this is 294. So this is again 348 is the magic, 348 versus 384. I mean, 348 has some troughing in the west, but it doesn't really have a ridge in the east. It's just got a sort of a trough, kind of a flattish west northwest westerly flow. The northern part of the jet is pushed where, it's pushed far enough south where you'd probably get some cold air, but it doesn't have a deep trough in the west. In fact, it has a split flow, which is actually kind of bullish. Because here's your northern part of the jet, and then here's your southern part of the jet. So there's all kinds of energy coming in here in the southern part of the jet that's moving into the southwest and heading east, while there is a separate northern jet there. So it's a much different look that we're seeing. That was sort of like a one-run hiccup, I guess, and
Yeah.
they kind of went with it. And in fact, I'm just now on this one. Now this one also goes all the way out beyond 384 hours. You've got a troughing in the east. You've got a split flow in the west. You have ridging in northwest Canada. I mean, if this is bullish. This is a bullish colder pattern that's being showed up on the ensembles today, which sort of explains why they did what they did with the 6 to 10 and the 8 to 14. And let's examine this. At 426, Joe, we've got troughing in the east, trough off the west coast, still have the western ridge, and we're only out to 492 hours. No sign of any big ridge in the eastern part of the United States with this. And we still have a long way to go because all the maps are not out. It goes all the way out to 834 hours.
When did they start this with the ensembles?
840.
I mean, it used to stop at 384. This is amazing now.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they do it on the 0Z runs. So let's look at because if I look at the 12Z, I'm not going to look at the 18Z because I know it's not going to be there. Yeah, the 18Z, the 12Z only goes out to 384. So it's apparently on the 0Z runs it goes out 3 to 4 weeks. So that's why I guess they're putting out 3 to 4 week forecasts. I guess now that's all public, and they got it in the budget to let it out to the public. And Levi Cowan of Tropical Tidbits has the bandwidth to put it up.
Well, good for him. It makes and you're hearing this from somebody who's been saying for the longest time they should do with the NAM. The NAM stops at 84 hours, and we should stop at 84 instead of going out 600 hours.
By the way, I'm just because I want for laughs, just to look at the 2-meter temperature anomalies. This is fun. We could check this every day. Really you really get tortured. So let's take a look. Maps are kind of loading up here. So starting from Rolling back, rolling back, rolling back, rolling back. All right, so let's go to. So this is Thanksgiving Day. You can see where all the below normal is. And
Right.
now we're going to Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Everybody east of the Rockies below. Um, Still below normal. Now we're at November 30th through much of the east, the Great Lakes. Still below normal, 324. Still below normal at 366. Just about on the edge of below normal at 420. Still some blue, a lot of blue back in the plains and in the Ohio Valley, out at 456. Also in the north, in the east again, Friday, December 8th, and that's as far out as we've gotten now, 492, which is 12Z, December 9th. Please, please, please do not extend the operation. If they extend the operational GFS beyond 384 hours, God help us, Joe, with how it loves to do amplitude and the long range, you will get people start
Oh, yeah.
quoting storms on maps at 3, 4, 5 weeks from now.
Right.
And you think we suffer? You think we suffer with snow maps right now? Can you imagine what we'll have to deal with if it ever got to that?
It's oh God, unbelievable. I remember I remember we were jumping up and down way back when National Hurricane Center extended their track forecast beyond 72 hours. I said, wow, look at that. Yes.
I
And remember
know.
back in those days, it would always with those predictions, they always used to say for intergovernmental use only. In other words, if you were on TV and you were doing the weather, you really weren't supposed to say this or indicate this. And now I could just see, you're right. I could just see various websites with, 16-year-old budding meteorologists out there, look at this. Well, about 21 days from now, we're going to have a big blizzard. No, no, no.
Jess Harden, you keep asking about Alabama for the wintertime. You've got to be patient. Okay, you got to let the pattern evolve over the next few weeks to see what happens. But um, as far as what you're seeing on maps, uh, you cannot be discouraged with this if because I know you want snow in northern Alabama. Here's your high coming in to southeastern Canada, setting us up for a chilly day tomorrow. Low to mid 40s for highs, and actually going to get wedged all the way down the Appalachians, which impacts me because anytime we got this wedge like this is where we get overcast. You get that wedge that the high builds down on the east side of the Appalachians. It causes it causes cloudiness and a raw kind of day. And here's your low, southern Indiana, up into Michigan. The high moves out off the coast of Maine. You see the blue snows up in upstate New York and New England. And yeah, there's your heavy rain on the GFS, Joe. It just kind of gets the northern edge of the heaviest rain just gets to about New York City and then slides out just underneath. But that's not it's not out of the uh, realm of possibility that you could wind up seeing that a little bit further to the north. So I'm gonna take a shot here and just say that we're probably gonna outperform as far as rain is concerned with this.
Well, like I said, it's good that it's happening now. I mean, it's good that it's going to be happening when it's happening and not happening, let's say, Wednesday night and Thursday, Thanksgiving Day.
Right.
So,
Now the primary low goes up into Lake Huron and dies out, and a secondary low is going to form probably off the New Jersey coast or just south of Long Island, somewhere in there, and then strengthens into a major storm offshore. The gradient gets tight after this is at 2 o'clock Wednesday, and then by 8 a.m. I'm sorry, by 8 p.m. Wednesday night, the gradient gets fairly tight over Long Island, over southern and central New England and southeastern New England. So it could get pretty gusty. So I wonder, there might probably there's going to be delays. I can't imagine there won't be. There's going to be delays anyway as it is. So this is just going to add to it as far as airport delays. Even though I don't really know, I don't do airports.
right.
Neither does Joe Rayo. And Thanksgiving Day itself, there's a little trough that goes by to the north. because there is a cold high there in the Dakotas, but the high just kind of the cold air just sort of spreads out east-west. And then now here's another question because over the week there's a low that comes out of the Gulf of Mexico that struggles initially off the southeast coast and then pushes up the coast as we get into Sunday, and you see it there. Runs from North Carolina to just southeast of Cape Cod. It probably will be cold enough for snow in upstate New York and Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine out of this. And then that goes out. And then, of course, now as we get into the week of the 27th, there's colder air coming down from Canada, and the model's showing colder air that's somewhat significant. But we just got taken through a roller coaster ride by the models last week as far as it getting potentially fairly cold this week, and it didn't quite work out that way. So I'm going to be a little suspect here until we get closer, but it is trying to spread out colder air. What I like, Joe, out of this, if from the standpoint of winter, is that the storm tracks seem to we're seeing these storm tracks where they're gravitating to the East Coast in some form or another. Now, granted, this one you got a primary that goes up north and redevelops, but nonetheless, it does redevelop offshore, and then you got this low that runs up the coast next weekend if it's real, and then the other systems are going to be suppressed further south if there's a more active northern jet. So I like seeing this, and it's just probably would be a matter of time again that you're going to get a setup sometime in the next 3 weeks or so.
It's like what the old saying says: you can only go to the well so often. So, it eventually something is going to happen. Something has to break. So we'll see. We'll see what will transpire as we move toward the middle and latter part of December. In spite of what NOAA says with the well above normal temperatures that are expected.
Right. Well, we looked at the 800 hour, Joe.
Yes.
Okay.
What a world we live in, right?
Yes. Do you have Briller Jeopardy, or by the way, I just want to acknowledge Leon Probitsky to hit the tip jar a little earlier. Thank you, Leon. Most appreciated. Do you have Briller Jeopardy?
I do believe I do. I do. And I'm going to get in just a moment here.
While you're doing that, Frank Scalera, you've hit the nail on the head when you say that way different than last year, as all the storms even were generally going well to our west. That is correct. The overall pattern, and we've pointed this out numerous times, but it's worth pointing out again. What we've seen this month is a whole lot different, and even through October, Tool. You could go back to October and make the same case. But particularly these last few weeks, what we're seeing right now is nothing like what we saw last year. It's totally different. So there's that. I mean, it's really, really, really important to remember that as we go forward.
I can't believe this. Is it possible that I have not?
I may have it.
Well, wait a minute. Scott sent me this. It says Monday, 9:57 p.m.
Right. Well, we
Monday.
put it off last week with everything that was going on with me, so I don't think we did it. Did we do it?
Okay. I don't think so. It says we continue with lowest temperature by state. And the first one on the list is Hawaii. So I don't think we did this one. So what is the lowest temperature ever recorded in specific states? And we start with Hawaii.
The lowest temperature? Now, here's my question. Are we talking about the top of Kilauea?
Yes, we are including the tops of mountains or volcanic
I mean, because
peaks.
they get blizzards up there.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't, God, I don't know. How cold could it get up there? I'll take a number. It's probably going to be colder than you think. How tall? What's the elevation of that? Do you know?
The two volcanic peaks, Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea, roughly are about 13,800 feet.
All right, so we're talking between 600 and 700 millibars, right?
Something like that, yeah.
So you got to think it's got to be a minus number. So I'll say. All right. Fledweather said goose egg. I'll go with him. I'll say goose egg.
Well, surprisingly, it is not a negative number. It's cold, but it's not a negative number. And it was recorded at Mauna Kea, which has an astronomical observatory. The coldest they've ever experienced up there, 12 degrees.
12. Okay. All right. Well, that's fair.
It's
Well,
considered,
Leon Probitsky said 13. So he's the
yeah,
coldest. Miss Fallerite said 12, but she said minus 12.
no,
Okay,
no.
so no, so
Unless,
take the
unless
minus
Scott,
out, you're good.
unless Scott did not put a hyphen next to the 12 to indicate negative temperature. It apparently was 12 Fahrenheit. So there you go.
Okay. All right,
So
what's the next one?
how about Idaho?
Idaho?
Idaho.
Idaho. All right, well let's let the chat board figure this one out.
You
Um
if we just did this little bit with that state back in the day with Don Imus, we could have gotten in trouble.
um all right, come on folks, Idaho. Uh Alaska Railroad, good to see you on the chat board. Nice to see you here. Our friends from Alaska uh joining us tonight here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. So Idaho, folks, Michael McGuire says minus 61.
Wow, Michael McGuire, you are exceedingly close.
Chris Alley is minus 25. So
Nowhere near that.
Maggie P said minus 64.
It's a little too cold.
Okay. Michael Azara minus 47. Anthony minus 62. William Uber minus 53.
As I said,
Leon says minus 60.
and Leon is right.
Very good.
Minus 60 degrees at Island Park Dam. Damn. Island Park Dam in Idaho, minus 60 degrees.
All right.
So how about Illinois?
Illinois. I'm going to say, don't let the chat board guess. I'll say minus. I'm trying to think back to those cold blasts that they got in the 70s. I want to say, I'll say minus 27.
Well, it was cold, but not cold enough, believe it or not, Joe.
I really thought so. DeMonte Robertson. Welcome, DeMonte. I think you're new. Minus 34.
DeMonte came much closer, but
Okay.
still not cold enough.
Not cold enough. Okay. Chris Alley says minus 41.
Yes,
Michael,
Bobby Livingsworth said minus 164.
right. Michael McGuire minus 38. Chuck Cardillo 31. Patrick Darcy 34. These are all minuses. Anthony minus 33. Shrubby minus 32. Christinapedia minus 32. Miss Fallerite minus 36. Are we getting there?
This Ballarite is pretty close.
How about well, Northern Grace is minus 45.
Nope, that's too cold.
Chuck Cardillo's minus 37.
That is about as close as you can get without actually getting it.
Bobby Livingsworth minus 38.
And there you go.
And runner
Minus 38.
Fledweather Norm Roberts at minus 39. Bogies Bees is on, Joe. Bogies Bees. He's on tonight.
Right, sweetheart. Minus 38 at Mount Carroll, Illinois. Mount Carroll? I mean, there's actually a mountain or a play. I generally, I'm thinking Illinois is a relatively flat state, but maybe there's a hill or something that goes up about 1,000
That
feet or
could be.
something.
Ohio has something like that.
How about Indiana?
I'll say minus 30.
Well, now remember, Joe, we just said Illinois, the coldest was minus 38.
All right, I know. I knocked a few degrees off of that and made it minus 30. Steve LaPointe said minus 39. Mike, what's that? Too cold.
Too cold.
Mike Whiteley says minus 43. Waiting for some more numbers to populate here, folks. Christina Pedia says her mom's name is Carol. Um, 2 likes to 100, folks. If you like the show, hit the like button because we love to go over 100 likes. Minus 28 from Northern Grace. Minus 32 from Kenneth Rosenberg. Minus 35 from Mike McGuire. Patrick Darcy, minus 37. Bogies Bees, thanks for hitting Super Chat. Thanks for banging the tip jar, sir. Josie, minus 26. Minus 24, Steve Lapointe. Anybody?
Well, we had two people who literally surrounded it. One said minus 35 and one said minus 37. So what possibly could it be?
It could be Frank Scalera and Tom Fox with minus 36.
And they are both right, minus 36. And that's at New Whitehead, Indiana.
Okay.
And finally, Joe, the only other state aside from Ohio with 4 letters in it, and that's Iowa.
Iowa. Oh God, I'm gonna say minus 40.
That's a good guess. It's not cold enough, but it's a good guess.
Not cold enough. Wow. Okay. So Iowa, it's got to be colder than minus 40, kids. Come on. Leon's got.
Of course, you know, minus 40 is the same Celsius and Fahrenheit. So
That's correct. 106 likes. Thank you, Steve Lapointe, and thank you for those of you who hit the like button. I said minus 40 and he says that's not cold enough. So you got to go. Anthony says minus 42. Michael McGuire minus 51.
Kenneth Rosenberg came very close.
Minus 46. Chris Alley minus 48. Minus 49 for Frank Scalera.
And Chuck Cardillo hit it. Chuck Cardillo with his minus 47.
Minus 47.
And that's at Elkader or Elkada. Elkader. Elkader, Iowa. Minus 47 degrees. Brr. I'll probably wait until it gets that cold here before I decide to put the Christmas decorations up.
I could do the ta-da with my my harmonica. Was that good? Can you hear that?
No, I can't.
You didn't hear that?
I didn't hear the harmonica.
Nothing?
I'm not hearing.
Really?
Not hearing the
How come
harmonica.
you can hear my voice and I got the harmonica on the mic?
See, I just heard something. How many of you heard the harmonica? I heard a little, like 1 or 2 notes, but that was about it.
All right, well, I've had this harmonica for years, and I just found it the other day, and I started playing it. I have to teach myself how to play the harmonica. All right, we're over an hour for a Sunday night. Tomorrow. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move and go. I'm gonna go back in the other room closer to the modem and see if I have solid walls here, so it's quite possible that there's some interference going on with that. I don't know. I got the door open so that the signal can go around the door. Anyway, the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you too can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. Use the coupon code I want a weather station because you do. And if you do, you get.
You'll get 10% off.
So Fled Weather says that it blasted his eardrum, so he was able to hear it. I don't know if anybody else. Just a little squawk, says Shrubby. And
Right.
Tom Fox says, I heard and play it. Oh, very good. Okay, so it was there. Some people heard it and some people didn't. All right, I just want to say really quick, I know a number of you have expressed your condolences about the passing of my mom, and I really appreciate that very, very much. Thank you so much for offering your sympathies and your condolences. It means a lot. So we will be back tomorrow night at the usual weather time, which is 7:35 p.m. Eastern. Do you have any departing thoughts, Mr. Rayo?
The only departing thoughts are thank you very much to all who hit the tip jar tonight, which, among others, Bogey's Bees, Bobby Livingsworth, the chairman, Scott Briller, Tom Fox, Steve Lapointe, we hope that he gets better, and Leon Probitsky. Thank you all.
All right. See you all tomorrow. Nighty night.